大家都能够一起的来做环保，买环保标章，去环保的旅宿业或者是餐馆哈。那未来真的像你讲的，任何一个服务业，我们都会开始一个一个来推展，也就是从食衣住行的每一个方向，我们都会去想。刚刚也有讲到所谓的低碳的婚礼嘛哈，那以后连那个我们也有台铁的便当有算碳足迹，那个也都是未来我们会算在绿色采购的项目里头。也就是说，从食衣住行方面，我们会尽量的一直让全民一起来做绿色生活的运动，就是形塑这样的一个文化。
是，可是呢，政府本身工程采购部分其实占了蛮大的一个金额嘛。那工程采购部分怎么样去执行一个绿色采购的方向？
我想我们也一直在跟工程会这边去做结合哈。那工程会好像明天我们也会再开一个会，就是有关绿色采购在工程方面要怎么样再更进一步，不是没有在做，是已经在做，只是说要怎么样再去修正到整个工程采购。不管是绿建筑的标章啦，或是水利署的水标章，或者是电的能源标、省能标章、省水标章，怎么样运用到工程的那个材料跟整个建筑里面哈？这个材料跟建筑嘛哈，一个是绿建材嘛，一个是省水标章之类的这些，我想工程会应该早上他也提到说，他对这个工程上面会跟这个所谓的成本哈。这个在合约上会比较困难嘛，哈，那所以我们大概明天，我想大家是这样一步一步来，就是我说，很多东西是要形塑到全民做绿色文化、绿色生活是要有一个进展的程度。
All right, thank you, Dr. Guo, for your presentation and reply. Thank you.
谢谢。
Our next presentation. EU industry examples for green solutions. It will be presented by Mr. Raul Kubicek, Director, ECCT Low Carbon Initiative. Let's welcome him.
Okay. 各位贵宾，大家好。我现在会 present， 然后我会用英文是。The European industry view in Taiwan on sustainability. So I'm going to introduce shortly to you the Low Carbon Initiative, which the European Chamber of Commerce in Taipei founded this year. I will talk about the report we just published on the 4th of December. So just to get everybody back, why actually we need green procurement. The thing is that a lot of our members touch upon industry solutions more and on power solutions than on, let's say, consumer goods. So just as a start, and then I'm going into best practice from our side for cities and for transportation and shortly into industry. Just for those of you who are not that familiar with Oshanhui, it's founded in 1988. It's a Xihui. It's an association of European business in Taiwan. So currently they count 700 plus European members. So let's say 98% of them are subsidiaries of European companies and also some US-based companies here and some Taiwanese companies. As you can see from the mission statement, it's a lobbying platform and a networking platform for European companies towards Taiwanese government, advancing key industry issues, fostering dialogues with officials, maintaining close ties with European institutions in Taiwan and Brussels. I'm going to give you an example. Promoting open competition, free trade. So for example, they're also pushing on a trade enhancement measure between Europe and Taiwan for that example, and supporting a level playing field, because if you talk a lot about trademarks and certifications, you easily go into double standards. So that's an issue which should be also remembered. What we also do at the ECCT to bring forward these issues, we have 27 different committees. So actually we have a public procurement committee who are very much into talking on this issue, but we also have a luxury good committee, a customs committee, and for example, I'm also the co-chair of the Energy and Environment Committee since 2010. So what is the ECCT Low Carbon Initiative actually doing? We overall have 20 members. I showed later to you. We are built on 3 pillars. So one is advocacy. That means actually going towards legislation and regulation issues, mainly energy and environment. We're lobbying for 6 years now for a Greenhouse Gas Emission Act, because one of the main issues, I think it's shortly been mentioned here, is that Taiwan has no price on CO2. So that's a major incentive that is missing. Then the automotive committee, definitely very strong on the standards, and then electrical engineering equipment going into power and industry, and other committees. For best practice, I will shortly indulge into some. On our website, you find best practice from 16 of our members, either in Europe or in Taiwan. So if you're interested in their specific detailed solutions, then you can check it there. And we also have a CSR and education platform, as you just heard from the EPA, that's important, going towards education. This is on one hand side towards communities like schools. So we did a presentation at the Nehu High School, Nehu Gaozong, in front of 800 pupils, just talking about what is Europe doing in sustainability, and we will keep on this work with schools. What we also do is CSR. We'll later on indulge in this one because the understanding of CSR in Europe and Taiwan is different, and there are good activities actually, if you look at foundations like from ASUS and so on, which are going into this direction. We want to team it up with European experiences. So just shortly to our members. So as I said, we have 20 members right now. As you can see, ABB, Siemens, and Bosch are in power industry solutions. Also Air Liquide, Atlas Copco, ST ST Technologies is also an industry solutions. You have chemical companies, BASF and Bayer. You have transportation, Airbus. You have few of the consumer end products like Audi, Ford. All of their cars that are imported here are actually coming from Europe. And then we have banking, Société Générale, and also transportation, Mercedes and Michelin. For certification, Liushore ISO U1E, just TÜV Rheinland, also for green mark certification. And then we have consultancy by Winkler Partners, that's attorneys, and McKinsey. And we're also very happy to have the EETO on board as an institutional member, and also the German Trade Office as an institutional member. So what we have done so far is one CSR workshop, as I said, for one of our platforms, so talking about CSR activities of European companies here, like ABB, for example, and matching this up with what is done on the Taiwanese side. Then we had the launch of the whole LCI in June in a conference with Vice President Wu and also Minister Chen from the EPA, and there our member companies already exhibited their best practices. And what we have just lately issued, what I was going to explain you shortly, is Low Carbon Taiwan 2030 report. This is actually built on a study that was done by the Chinese Institute of Economic Research, CIER, and TAIDA, NTU, as well as McKinsey. It was published last year, and it was commissioned by the National Science Council. That's a 400-page Chinese assessment of what is CO2 status now in Taiwan, and what will happen if it's business as usual, and where are the technologies with which we can save CO2 and how much CO2. The second part is also what I'm going to present here is best practice solutions from industry and transportations as well as cities, and also all the best practices of our 16 members. So just going into the study a little bit, I mean, you're all very much aware if you're in the topic. So the thing is, Taiwan imports 99% of its fossil fuels. That's actually from a national security point of view too much. It's also, if you see it from a business point of view, an extreme problem towards global prices because, example, the oil prices are going up, coal can also swing, so that's a huge and major issue, and actually currently the tab is paid by the government. So if you look at the numbers around, the subsidy is around 60,000 Taiwan dollar a year per head in Taiwan for this kind of subsidies you do on energies. Then the thing is that McKinsey found out due to the delay of the forced nuclear power plant and also due to some new power plants not coming up, it might happen that in 2015 there might be energy shortages because the line for power is too short from 2015 to 2017, so this could be an issue for industries because suddenly you have a blackout which will have an impact on production. Then the thing is that Taiwan is actually an export-oriented country, so a lot of trademarks thing you're doing here, actually some of your companies like AU are also doing for overseas markets because you have big corporations, one big example is Apple, but also other IPO companies that will actually look into their CO2 emissions. So they also talk to the suppliers, and a lot of the suppliers are in Taiwan. So actually a Taiwanese company do a lot on CO2 savings because they have to due to the international community. Then Taiwan's clean tech capabilities, you're already very good at doing PV, so solar cell manufacturing. That is supposed to be up to 13 gigawatt next year, which is double the German market, which is a tremendous sum. But sadly, there's nothing much installed in Taiwan. Moving ahead in CO2 emission savings, that is also in plus side, so you can enhance more clean tech capabilities. The challenge now is that Taiwan accounts for 1% of global GHG emissions, with only 0.3% of global population, so the CO2 emission is quite high. Then we have the pledge by the Taiwanese government to return to 2005 emission levels by 2020 and to 2000 level by 2025. So what is the idea of the study is mainly to see at which parts we are actually able to save CO2, and the outcome of the report, of this part of the report, is that until 2013, with current technologies and upcoming technologies, Taiwan could save up to 50%. The not so good news is that the pledges by the government are not reachable in this current example. The thing is, what McKinsey basically has done, and not only for Taiwan, is to see which technologies will bring a benefit. So setting this in motion, like exchanging your light bulbs to LED and T8 to T5, improving HVAC, motor systems and chemicals, energy efficiency and other industry, might be extending the nuclear lifetime, and hydropower is all very beneficial, so there will be a plus if you do it. You will make money with this. More expensive other things where you can save CO2 is, for example, if you go into CCS, that will be actually a premium you need to pay to introduce it, but your target is to save CO2, so that's the idea in spending the money. The same would apply for offshore wind or coal to gas shift, so these are the prices. Overall, for Taiwan, they assume, with the current things we know, that Taiwan would have to spend $6 billion, so a Liu Shi million, each year to implement all these technologies and thus saving 50% of CO2. So they have done the business as usual outline, so that meaning with the current population growth, which is stagnating, with an average growth of 1.5 to 2% each year. And also, as in Taiwan, CO2 emission is not decoupled yet from industry production. This would mean that if we go in business as usual, we don't do anything, we just let it run, we will be up at 2025 to 415. With the technologies we have and with the technologies the European companies actually offer, that could be a saving up here 50%, but the target would be from 415 would need to go down 220 something, which will not be possible with the current business as usual examples. So this is a gap that needs to be filled. And even this means that from now on we have to be very active. So meaning the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act should go through and green procurement has to be sped up. So just coming then to some examples, not so much towards green procurement, but the ECCT also in 2009 did a study on European technologies used in built environment, and you can save up to 30% if you would have stricter building codes in Taiwan, not just using the system you use now, meaning that this is a free choice if you want to have a green building, but if you would implement it like in Europe into your building codes, and thus asking for a stronger energy efficiency in buildings. So this thing we have done in 2009 was more or less a simulation because not a lot of buildings are built after European standards here. With this simulation, it is shown that you can save up to 30% if you use European technologies for HVAC, for insulation, for windows, for cement, and so on. One of the best practices of our members, which is also mentioned in the study, which you can download on our website, is the Taipei 101 project. It used to be the tallest building, but then they did one in the Near East, so it was not the tallest building anymore, but then the idea was to have the tallest green building. So in 2011, the 101 was refurbished to receive LEED certification, platinum certification actually. And in this project were not only American companies involved, also European companies, for example, Siemens and TÜV Rheinland. So what did they do? I mean, you have a huge building, so the economies of scale are quite huge. So they invested $400,000 to do something with the HVAC and building control system and also wastewater treatment and waste treatment. And now they can save up to $700,000 a year. So the return of investment was actually 1 year. So it also shows that in certain cases you can have such high saving that your ROI is going down. So as I said, it's 30% lower and it's 20 million per year. The idea is actually to have this landmark building to also spread it through all the other buildings, but this will need more regulation actually from government sides. On part it is done for public buildings because they now have to follow the green mark in Taiwan, but there should be stricter building codes because actually buildings makes 28% of CO2 emission and also uses 40% of all the power in Taiwan. So there's actually huge saving potentials in the built environment in Taiwan. If you come actually, the biggest accumulation if we talk about consumers in Taiwan is actually the power sector. So 60% of the CO2 emission in Taiwan comes from power because it's coal. It's mainly coal, and then followed by nuclear and fuel. Also then industry again uses 28%, emits 28% of CO2 emission in 2010, but uses again 60% of this power. So it's a huge correlation with industry. Actually the largest savings can be done in the power sector and in the industry sector. This only indirectly comes to procurement in this case, on behalf, for example, if you have government companies who have to procure, for example, in the chemical area for new material, because in industry you have a lot of solutions from Europe, which, for example, like pumps and overall automation, which can save a lot of energy, but this would be industry solutions. So the other thing we have done in the study is actually transportation. As you have seen, we have a couple of transportation companies. One upcoming topic is actually e-mobility. For example, Bosch is running a scheme in Germany together with Deutsche Bahn in Berlin to test e-mobility cars as a fleet connected to public transportation and how the usage is. So this project was done in 2010, and actually they managed to connect. If you use the train, you can also use one of these cars, and especially in summer they managed to have 6 hours rent out of these cars. And they also were very interested who is using the car and how the car is used. So they found out mainly it's men who use the cars, so 80% of the usage was men, 36 years old, and then they also did an evaluation. How about what would they be willing to pay? So 50% actually would not be very happy to pay more. So they found out that if you have an electric car, you need to have it as a price level, which is lower with the same car as fuel consumption cars. The idea is to see how can e-mobility fit with urban planning and with local transportation. So this is one in the e-mobility side, one of the projects. Also, ABB and Siemens are very active in providing charging stations. Siemens has one case here in New Taipei City with Ali together. They're ALEEE. They're using an electric bus system, so they have some buses already on the road to test electric buses in Taipei City. And also companies like Audi and so on, they will bring on e-mobility or full e-vehicles next year onto the markets, at least in Europe. So for transportation, which is somehow related to some of the government procurement, this is definitely European car technology. So if you exchange your current cars, your older cars, which have a high usage of fuel with newer cars, and you take into account life cycle costs. So this means they will have less fuel cost as well as less CO2 emission, which would be important. Then it would be a consideration for the car procurement sector, for example. That's for the transportation side. So this has actually been very short because we only have few examples right now. Some of them are actually in the power sector, but only partly because we only supply parts of the power sectors currently in Taiwan. So, but as I said, actually power and industry are very important as a factor to take into consideration for green procurement. So I'll be open for any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open. Any questions? 各位先生、女士有问题吗？ Oh, okay. Please.
还是要请翻译，我的英文不好。那个有关于今天讲绿色采购，但是欧盟他们对他们自己在石化工业方面，他们是采取什么样的措施？谢谢。petroleum 石油工业，对，他们是采取什么样的措施去达到这个绿色采购的目的？
Actually, one, if you're talking about pumps, for example, there are regulations from the European Union on the usage of energy and stop-go for pumps. This is a directive which is in the report. So this is one way that you have to ask companies when they procure, they have to procure these items after these regulations, or at least the production has to be after these regulations. So this zips then into industries. And also for a lot of European companies now, life cycle cost becomes an important issue because our energy prices are higher. So this will also impact your procurement. In this case, that you will have a real look at, okay, you buy the machine very cheaply, but you will use a lot of energy or a lot of maintenance. So this is also put forward. So this is also how this zips into industry procurement.
Any questions? Okay, please.
请问一下，刚刚谈到这个商会有很多的会员都是汽车产业，那当然您也提到说在节能部分有很大的效果，可是您在汽车产业部分不晓得在环境或健康的诉求，例如说刚刚也有人提到说车内的空气品质的问题，还有车子本身，例如说它的上面的油漆、烤漆、皮件等等，有没有这方面的一些绿色的诉求？
Yes, actually Thomas can also answer the question partly. The thing is, as far as the EU regulation is also on CO2 per car. So for 2015 it will be 130 grams for the whole fleet of the manufacturers. So seeing the average of the whole fleet of the manufacturers is 130 grams per CO2. And 2020 it should go down to 95 kilogram CO2. And also for fuel efficiency, in 2015 it should be 5.6 liters on 100 kilometers, average over the whole fleet, and 4.1 to 100 liters. If you go inside the car, you have actually regulations concerning chemicals used in textiles and so on. So I'm not aware how much this is actually transported to the consumer, that inside the car it's healthy, because you would assume that the textiles and stuff you use are actually by other regulations already regulated and thus not polluting. So usually if you buy a car, you also will only see, just as in Taiwan, the CO2 emission and the fuel usage. Yeah.
Okay, anyone? All right, and I would now like to announce a coffee break. We're going to have a really long coffee break until 3:10. So please enjoy the refreshments outside, and please remember be back before 3:10. Sorry, 3:10. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. Robert Kalkwich, Policy Officer, Green Public Procurement, DG Environment, European Commission, to give us his presentation. Let's welcome him. He's in Brussels.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Well, good afternoon, I think, in Taiwan. Here in Brussels, it's quite early. I'm very happy that we can present this morning the experience from the EU on green public procurement to people interested in it in Taiwan. It's a bit challenging, I suppose, for Peter and me this morning to make a presentation because we have missed the first part of the seminar. So please don't hesitate to stop me if there's something that has already been discussed at